Well, the Brexit decision is as important for the EU as it is for the UK. Today, the leaders of Germany, France, and Italy met here in Berlin, a warm-up session before tomorrow's summit of EU leaders. Here's what the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, said.
We can't afford an ongoing stalemate, because I believe that would not be good for the economy of either Britain or the remaining 27 EU members. But I have a certain degree of understanding for Britain taking some time to analyze everything. Secondly, what must be clear is that there can be no informal negotiations before there is a formal declaration of the intention to leave the European Union. That means we cannot begin any informal talks without having the announcement from Britain. That's completely clear to me.
All right, Simon Young and Barbara Wesel are joining us now. Simon here to my right, our political correspondent, Barbara Wesel, our trooper in London, covering this story for us. Simon, let me start with you. What do you make of the German Chancellor's comments there? She's basically saying we can't do anything until we get notice from the British.
Well, I think in many ways that's a statement of fact, isn't it? It's for the British government, as David Cameron said in Westminster today, to launch that Article 50 process, the process of Britain leaving the EU. So all that the European leaders can do at this stage is, if you like, put rhetorical pressure on the British to go ahead with that. But they've done that today by saying, particularly the French and Italian leaders here in Berlin today, saying that they would like to see that happen as soon as possible. And the reason is because uncertainty and contagion, a domino effect, all the threats to the European Union, the European project that you see around Europe, those will grow. Those can only get louder during this period of uncertainty. Angela Merkel, for her part, as we know and love her, preaching caution, keeping things calm, saying there has to be a response, but we must, at the moment, wait and see what happens.
Yeah, stay calm and don't worry. I mean, she actually, she seems very British this evening, as a matter of fact. Barbara, let me pull you in here. This fear of contagion, it is real, particularly on, the part of geography where you are. We've got Scotland right now, people seriously reconsidering independence.
This whole thing may tear the United Kingdom apart. That is at the moment, or it seems at the moment, a rather remote possibility. But Scotland is really up in arms. When you listened to the Parliament this afternoon, the first debate after the Brexit vote, all the Scottish parliamentarians got up and said, we do not want this. We do not want to be taken out of Europe against our will. So that is very clear. The whole legal side of it is less clear because it seems that they cannot block, constitutionally, they cannot block the vote of the Parliament that is in Westminster. However, Nicola Sturgeon is considering a second referendum. That is not easily done. It will also not come very quickly. But there is a tremendous political build-up in Scotland and also in Northern Ireland. So the British government, whoever the next Prime Minister may be, Boris Johnson or Theresa May or a third person, will have to also deal with that. Apart and aside from the negotiations with the European Union, they're going to be very difficult, very protected, and that nobody really has yet a plan for.
And Barbara, what's your take on David Cameron saying, yes, we have to respect that there will be a Brexit, but the next Prime Minister will finish that job?
Yes, I mean, that's the easy way out, to say it bluntly. David Cameron has created this situation. He has really made this crisis by initiating this referendum, which was something that he didn't have to do in 2013. The pressure on him wasn't that great. He did win the elections afterwards. Now, he held the referendum. He didn't think he could possibly lose it. He did lose it in the end. There was no plan B. And all he does is he steps out in front of number 10 Downing Street and says, thank you, folks. course, that was it. I'm leaving. So you may like that or not like that. Some say that's the good thing to do. Others say it's disgraceful. But he's just handing the plate with worms to his successor. That's what he's doing, in fact.
Yeah, just good politics, isn't it, Simon? I mean, that's what you do, right?
Well, that sounds almost a little cynical, Brent. I mean, I think everyone in Britain and certainly across Europe recognises that this is a historic moment. This is a key moment in the development of Europe, the European Union, the European family of nations, however you want to frame it. You know, everyone recognises that probably just now a moment of pause, a little bit of analysis, a deep breath or two would help. But there's not much time for that. We've got the summit in Brussels tomorrow. Really tense meeting with Cameron and the other European leaders.
There is so much. There is still such a high level of shock. I mean, and you hear comments from people, from leaders, still trying to tell themselves that no, this is real. For example, the German foreign minister today, he was asked about it, and it was interesting. Even he said, "This is not irreversible," and there is, though, this subtle underlying desire to hit, I don't know, rewind and go back maybe 96 hours. Don't you agree?
Well, I think that there is a fantasy that some people are pursuing. We've heard a lot about this online petition, for instance, in the UK. With millions signing up there. That would become interesting if more than 17 or 18 million people signed it and they were all resident in the UK, then I would begin to take notice.
I mean,
but until then, it's a fantasy.
What's your feel, though, Simon? I mean, you know the place, you know the UK, and do you think they're going to succeed with getting enough signatures and getting another referendum?
No, certainly not. I don't see any possibility for pressing the rewind button at this stage. What has happened is the British people have spoken, and indeed, at today's meeting of European leaders here in Berlin, Matteo Renzi, the Italian Prime Minister, he said, we must listen to the people. The people have spoken, and it would be a terrible decision if we now behaved like the elites that they've criticised us for being and somehow tried to ignore or turn away what the people have said. Yeah. We regret the decision. He said it's like waking up and finding you've lost a family member, but we will go on. Europe will be stronger. In fact, he is saying, the Italian Prime Minister is saying, this is a challenge from which Europe can benefit. Yeah,
and Barbara, I'll wrap up with you. You've covered the European Union for a long time. Is there maybe this, slowly growing feeling that the European Union may actually come out of this trauma a better union for all members?
That would be the best possible option. You know that European usually is really adept in just muddling through. That will not be enough this time. The problem is that Angela Merkel is sort of the informal leader of the group. She's a very cautious politician. I don't need to tell you that in Berlin. And she sort of hedges her bets and see how she can sort of manage the situation without upsetting either or the other side. But what you would need now would be somebody charismatic, somebody who can reawaken the spirit of the European Union. That is not just about trade. It's not just about business. This whole thing is also very emotional. If you talk to people here in London during the last 3 days, we've seen some young people almost in tears because they said we don't want to be taken out of Europe against our will because they didn't understand early enough what was at stake. And even some older people said we didn't really want this, and do you now hate us, or we do apologize to you. So the reactions are really also very emotional. It's more than about business and economics. It's also an emotional bond that has been grown over decades, and all that is now supposed to be torn apart, and that is a side of it that needs to be considered too.
All right. Well said there. Our correspondent, Barbara Wesel, in London, and here in the studio with me, Simon Young, our political correspondent. To you both, thank you very much.